Hello, everybody. Welcome to the DePINed Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Trowbridge. We're excited to bring you interviews with the key founders in the DePIN landscape, investors, and ecosystem partners. This is an exciting time for DePIN, and this year we're going to be meeting even more founders learning about the projects that they're building, about the traction they're getting, and about the revenue that they're generating. The podcast is brought to you by Fluence. Fluence is building a decentralized compute platform. It's a project I'm a co-founder of and really excited about. So buckle up for this year. Please subscribe to the channel, listen to us on Spotify or Apple. And of course, if you are around any of the large conferences, come to our DePIN Day where you can meet these founders on the Fluence team in person and hear from all the ecosystem partners as well. So look forward to seeing you in person, and let's get going on this podcast. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the DePIN Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Trowbridge. Thrilled to be here with Mateusz, who is co-founder and president of Rumi. Welcome, Mateusz.
Hi, Tom. Great to be here.
Listen, and I'm excited to have Mateusz here because Rumi is doing something different than anyone else we've had on so far. And so Mateusz is going to give you a lot more detail, but they're effectively enabling video and interactive experiences from traditional streaming platforms and from traditional TV. So they're making, I think, what is the future, which is our media to be interactive. And if I've got that right, Mateusz, correct me if I've got it wrong, but if that's roughly right, correct me anyway, and give us some more detail on what that means and how you do it.
That's roughly right. Yeah, we are creating infrastructure that enables AI media, new type of media that transforms passive TV streaming and different type of media experiences into interactive, personalized ones. So basically, users, instead of just passively staring at a screen, can get involved with the characters, can ask any question, can modify content, can personalize it. Basically, we want to turn TV into video games. We believe that people don't want to just be viewers, they want to be players. So this is what Rumi's infrastructure is going to enable.
Well, all right. Well, that's a big change. And I mean, I guess what you're talking about is effectively blurring the lines between video games, which is a huge world, and just more passive media consumption, which is also a vast space as well. And so what's kind of interesting is you're talking about the convergence of those two, which is a pretty powerful wave and a powerful trend if that happens. So what does that mean, and how does Rumi enable that?
Yeah, so what we are currently doing in the first stage of the project, we are indexing the content out there, starting with the most popular streaming services. So our network of suppliers, DePIN nodes, whenever they're watching their favorite streaming platforms, they are running our AI models locally on their devices. And they're helping us in several ways. They're creating a fingerprint of audio that allows for content recognition. You can think of it as Shazam for media, so that AI agents in the future can recognize content on any device. They know that somebody's watching Stranger Things and they're at episode 3 at minute 32, second 13. Then they're also running our video language models, which we have compressed and built a detailed infrastructure architecture around that allows us to build the most granular story tree about each content piece. So we know about everything that happens in the story. This is quite a different approach than what traditional video language models are taking. We are looking at relations in a video between what characters do, how they behave, their emotions. The nodes in our network that are running Rumi's AI models, they are building the story tree for us. Passively, of course, the user doesn't have to do anything. The model is building the richest story tree about each media title out there. So we're trying to identify all of the relations between actions, objects, emotions, dialogues, characters, build story arcs, build plot arcs, and so on. This database can then be used by agents to modify content, to answer any question about content. We also have dedicated agents that are looking for the story tree and asking additional questions, like what is the most likely question people will be asking about this scene? I like this t-shirt, like where can I get something like this? Where was this scene shot? Where did I see this character before? And so on. So we're getting all of these answers through our network of suppliers, building the richest knowledge base about media. And then on the other side, AI agents get those superpowers of interacting with content in ways unimaginable before. So they can ask any question, modify content. They have ability to recognize content. They can serve contextual ads, which is the next paradigm in advertising. This is all enabled through our infrastructure.
Mateusz, so tell me on this, the way it works is tell me get the terminology right, but your providers, they download a browser extension and that extension tracks what they watch, right? And so that collects the data. So if everybody watched the same thing, you get a lot of duplicates. If everybody watched something different, you'd get everything different. If you're watching half and half, or half of a show or half of a video, how does that all get spliced together?
Correct. So we are following this so-called sprouting strategy. So everybody downloads the same seed products. The product then adjusts to your machine, depending on whether you have a very old machine that cannot really contribute a lot in compute, or it's a powerful machine like M4 MacBooks. We're going to adjust the jobs that you can do via our Rumi extension, but everyone can contribute. So for the lightest machines, we care about impressions. So we are rewarding people with points just for allowing us to track what they're watching. This is kind of, Nielsen, the biggest viewership analytics company on the planet. They're like $10 billion business. So they are the information about what people are watching, how they're watching it, it's very valuable, particularly from advertising perspective. So we are also able to collect that. On the other side of the spectrum, the powerful machines are able to contribute their compute to run our AI analytics, to do the audio fingerprinting and to extract frames and to analyze the video, to build the story tree that I was talking about before. So these type of nodes are compensated the most. The ones that are doing impressions are also getting points, but of course it is proportional to the use of compute. And for the heavy nodes, of course, after we index certain piece, we need some redundancy. So we are typically doing 3 copies of the same piece, both for video analytics and audio analytics. We validate, and after we and it's stitched together, right? So if somebody just indexes half of the title and somebody else indexes the other half, we're gonna get that. But then we need somebody else to do the whole thing or parts of it. Then we stitch it together, validate, ensure that we have the right fingerprint, the right story tree, and then we get it off our list.
When you think about scale, what scale does this take to be really effective? And what are you shooting for? And kind of how are people incented to participate?
So we are currently cataloging, indexing the historical catalog. We're estimating that around 1 million hours of content should cover pretty much everything that people are watching right now. So right now we're ramping up to hundreds of thousands of users. We're going to have a new release of the product V1 in October. And most of those nodes, of course, will not be able to do the heavy jobs. They will be just tracking impressions. but with tens of thousands, we are able to collect the whole catalog within a few months. Then in a steady state, for the net new content, for live TV, live sports, new productions on streaming and so on, we anticipate 10,000 very reliable nodes to be enough to sustain Rumi. But of course, we can expand beyond streaming and TV. There is more and more content generated every year, especially generative AI. So we will also enable third parties to commission jobs to our network to index types of content that is valuable to them. We are also going after different types of media, like podcasts, like games, ultimately, because Rumi will not only be a companion for streaming TV, but for any kind of media.
Really interesting. And how are people incented and kind of motivated to download and to have the extension?
Currently, as a typical DePIN project, we're starting with points. The points will ultimately convert to token. We're going to do an airdrop. We're going to it's actually a very simple distribution depending on the jobs that people made. Let's say people index million hours of content. We'll see who contributed how much compute. We're going to have certain percentage of network value allocated to airdrop, and we're going to distribute it fairly to those contributors pre-token launch. In the meantime, given that we want to target, and we're targeting with the next release in October, Web 2 user or normies, who don't really understand tokenomics, we want to provide some earlier economical value. So we're going to introduce certain redemptions. For example, if you provide enough compute power to us, we'll pay for your Netflix subscription for a month and stuff like this. So there will be redemptions for people who are not very familiar with Web3 economics. And for those who are more patient and excited about the token, there will be an airdrop.
Listen, I love the concept of paying for goods as opposed to just cash. I think that's a pretty interesting way to kind of make it more about an exchange versus just a dollar amount. I think that's a pretty cool idea. There's a lot more I want to get into in terms of what you're doing, but let's back up for a second and talk about Mateusz and what your background is and how you got involved and kind of the story that brought you here.
Yeah, of course. I grew up in Poland since early childhood. I was very into storytelling. I grew up in like a very gray, kind of depressing post-communist city. And I was escaping into stories, Hollywood stories, games. I started writing, filmmaking when I was quite young, and I wanted to be a creator. I went to college basically because my parents forced me to. But I was really, really dedicated to become a creator. But in Poland, it was pretty rough. And I quickly realized that I'm going to be very poor or working on things that I really don't like. So I had this dream of making it all the way to Hollywood. And given that I was studying economics, I figured out the best way to move to the US would be through grad school. So I figured out, okay, I'm going to get MBA. How do people from Poland get MBA? It was basically only consultants. So I used my artistic background and the fact that I was studying economics to jump into Spotify, which was entering Polish market. I became head of business development for Spotify. That was 12 years ago. Spotify was still a startup. Launched Central European markets. Then I moved to Boston Consulting Group. So I was a consultant for 3 years, touched literally like every industry, healthcare, finance, insurance, and finally made it to US. I got accepted to HBS for my MBA. and met some Hollywood people, got an internship in Hollywood, worked for one of the biggest producers, John Davis. You probably recognize hundreds of his movies. And I realized that, oh my God, I just hate Hollywood. The walled garden. I was like, I'm going to be miserable here. He offered me to return after HBS, $50,000 a year to be his assistant. It's like everybody goes through this path unless your father owned a big studio, like it was the case for my boss back then. So I was like, okay, this is not a path for me. I still want to tell my stories, but I'm going to do it in a different way. My other internship was with Amazon, and I was focused on Alexa. And I got super excited about AI. I read all the books about that topic. That was 2018. And I got this existential anxiety about AI. And I was like, oh my God, we're creating God here. And seems like there was a really big chance that we're going to screw it up. So I decided that I really want to focus on AI. And out of school, I told myself coding, data science. Out of school, I went to IBM Watson, learned how to work with AI researchers, developers, also learned how much I suffocate in corporations. So as soon as I got my green card, I moved to startups. I wanted to do AI startups, but that was 2021. Like OpenAI was basically AI startup. There were no roles there. I somehow got connected to those two Harvard founders at Omni Network, starting their other Web3 company. Back then, I thought crypto was a scam. But I got on a call with them, and they were really visionary and inspiring. So I did what I did with AI before. I read everything there was about Web3, and I created a new core belief for myself that the future, for the best future of mankind, we really need fully decentralized information, money, and AI. So I went into Web3, was COO at Omni Network, running business development for 2 years. And after 2 years, I decided it's time for me to start my own company. I actually started working on another AI venture, B2B SaaS kind of copilot for data engineering, data science tasks. It was going okay, but it was clearly not aligned with my life purpose, and also didn't have a right co-founder. And literally the day after I decided I need to shut it down, Nico, who envisioned Rumi, reached out to me. I was like, hey, I think you have perfect experience for what I'm cooking here. We should really talk. So I jumped on a call with him. This time I was better prepared for what to look for in a co-founder. And I looked at Rumi. I was like, how is it possible? It literally combines everything that I've ever worked on that I'm the most excited about. Media entertainment, storytelling, AI, decentralization. And I knew exactly what to do with this. So we joined forces with Nico in January. By March, we closed our almost 5 million pre-seed. And the rest is the story. Now we're almost 30 people, launching V1 next month. And hopefully first consumer products in Q1 2026.
I mean, going from launch to first consumer product in a year would be pretty great. So good luck if you can pull that off. That is terrific. And I think that sounds like really fast work. I think the experience you have also is interesting. I think you're the only founder I've had on, and I've had about 60 that went to HBS. So that's I'm excited about that. That shows the space says something about you. Also says that maybe there's a little thing about the space maturing if we get some Harvard Business School grads involved. But as also, I think is really interesting because your background has both startup entrepreneurial experience as well as the traditional big company background. And I think that's a real professionalization, which I think is also really good to have. And it's good to have both those for sure.
That's right. I think, my background is pretty unique. I guess before Rumi, some people would have looked at my resume and be like, sort of random, but I connected all of these dots with Rumi. It's actually great. Like, that's my advice for young people to just like venture out, like try different things, experience, because that's where the craziest, biggest ideas come to life.
Well, they definitely do. But the thing that's interesting, in my view, what I always tell people is you start off with the brand name, the BCG, the whatever. And from there, you dip into more entrepreneurial. You going the other way is far less common. And that's a higher risk plan, right? Like, and Spotify was a huge success. You had a great role there. That gives you a lot of opportunities. That's a rare startup that actually can launch you into it. Normally you start the big platform and then you figure out where you're going to dip into the entrepreneurial world. Well, also tell me also about Rumi, because it seems like, just listening to what you said a little bit about it, that this wasn't even possible or really even needed 2 or even through 2 to 4 years ago, whatever it is, right? So, and this is true for a variety of DePIN projects, I think, where either the capability is relatively new to put it together, and for you guys, there wasn't even necessarily the market for it, whatever it was a couple of years ago. So how do you think about the timing and the software, technological, crypto advances that made this possible, and the fact that the market you're even working towards didn't even exist 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah, this is actually the first time something like this can be done. Companion apps for TV have actually been experimented with a decade ago. They all failed. We still have some experimentation. I don't know if you saw Love Island, this reality TV show, very popular. They launched an app, a companion app. It was like 2 months ago, and they got like 5 million downloads day one. And it was like a extremely elementary app. It was just for voting. There were like some minimal AI engagement with contenders, and of course some shopping, right? They wanted to milk the app, of course. So companies have been experimenting with companions. Generally, like all of the big media players like Disney, Netflix, they all see that people want to be more involved, and they also want to get more direct to consumer connection, right? But it's been very difficult and technically impossible until now. On the other hand, running AI models locally on devices that can analyze video at such level of granularity that is required for all of these use cases, that was also impossible, like literally a few months back. We're using the latest open source models, latest VLMs, and building our architecture around it. That's our secret sauce. VLMs are, there's a new one coming every month, but we are fine-tuning them, compressing them, and ensuring that they can run on people's computers. So this is literally the first time in history that anyone with a solid laptop can create this type of database for us. And we cannot do it centrally, nor can OpenAI, Google, and so on, because of IP concerns, right? The only way to actually create such infrastructure or media would be to coin deals with all of these media giants. Google or OpenAI would have to go to Disney, to Netflix, and ask them, hey, sell me those video files and allow me to create this type of indexing to analyze it at such level of granularity. And of course, Disney and Netflix would not agree to that, because Google, OpenAI, and so on, they're using this data to train their own video generation models, which are existential threats to IP owners. But this is not what Rumi is doing. We are not training video generation models. We're not competing at all with IP owners. We are actually helping them. We are building infrastructure around their IP so that they can get direct-to-consumer channel and they can get extra monetization paths. They can engage their users more. They can know what their users actually think, feel, what they want at any second as they consume their content. So this is super valuable to them.
And how does that work? I guess I'm not I guess I don't grasp that last piece. Like, how does the API, the basically plugin, which is tracking what you're watching, how does that then reflect how you're consuming it or what you're thinking about, or even if you're paying attention to it all versus in the bathroom or something?
The extension currently, again, that's like supplier side, right? So we are indexing content. It's done in decentralized fashion so that Rumi never touches any actual IP. We never store any frames, any actual audio snippets on our servers. Everything is done by decentralized network, right? We're only getting hashed fingerprints. You cannot retrieve original audio from that. And we're only catching the extremely granular story tree, which is also that there's been many, many legal use cases that you can describe content however you want and publish it online. The only argument would be if that's somehow competing with original content. But you would need to make an argument that reading several pages of text per second of video is actually alternative to watching that video, which is a bit of a nonsense argument. Nobody would do that. So this is on the supply side. Then on the demand side, there are agents, including the ones that we are going to build. We're building our own application, first ever AI remote, starting with a phone. So imagine replacing your remote for TV with Rumi. So you just talk to your friendly companion on your phone. You're like, hey, Rumi, play me the movie that is somehow that is similar to that movie that is available on my streaming platforms that I already pay for. Give me free best options. Okay, cool. Move to the scene when they're in hospital. So super smart remote, right? Very that you can communicate with or more natural. Then ask any questions. Oh, I saw this guy before. Where did I see this guy before? How are these two characters related? Why was this a foul? I love the dress that this character is wearing. Can you get me something similar? What is the song? I don't like the narration, or I don't like the commentators for this game. Can you actually bring to life my two favorite players so that I can talk to them about what they do on the screen right now, live? Kids, instead of just passively staring at a screen, let's bring Peppa Pig to life and have her spin up educational activities about what the kid sees on the screen. So we ensure that kid is also learning. You don't like the ending of the show? Let's create a new one together. So all these type of use cases will be enabled through the use of our infrastructure and also our channel for Rumi app, which, ultimately you're going to have it on the smart glasses. But also, of course, we're opening it up to third-party agents. We already have deals with Virtuals, with Eliza, to call our APIs and get this kind of superpower so that the AI agents on whatever platform, whether it's X, Instagram, TikTok, that they're not just AI avatars, but that they understand the context. They understand what you're doing. They understand the media you're consuming at the moment, and they can interact with you around that. And of course, contextual advertising. So those agents can monetize additionally, right? Contextual advertising is forecasted to be the biggest segment of advertising by 2030. Agentic, contextual. So right now, you know how it evolved, right? Ads were just extremely random with TV. Then we got social media, Google. So people get profiled, right? So we know your history, we know what you most likely like. So that's great. But then contextual, we have your profile, but we also know what you're doing right now. We know what you're watching. We know what's on the screen. We know what you're interested in, what you like, what you don't like, what you're asking about. Plus, we have your profile, so we can bring back the ad that will be the most valuable to you in this particular context.
That's very ambitious, but I also see it as the future, right? It seems to me to make sense that you end up with this. Like, we have the technology capability, you're helping build it, and I think people will clearly respond to that. Help us understand what metrics you're managing to. What's a success for Rumi in 2 years, 3 years? Like, help people understand how big can it be? Is it how many people you have participating? Is it shows or media customers that have put X number of hours that are Rumi enabled? Like, help us understand kind of scale and metrics that you're looking towards.
Yeah, first of all, on the supply side, so we need to have a reliable network of, say, 10,000 highly reliable, strong compute nodes around the world. Because, for example, for live TV, we actually need nodes to be located in the cities where the signal is coming from. If there's a game in Los Angeles, we need to have really strong machines very close to the signal indexing the game so that people all over the world can watch live with all the enhancements coming from Rumi. So that's the first thing. We need to have full catalog covered and reliable nodes all over the planet to ensure live TV coverage. Then on the consumer side, yeah, of course, we want to have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of users basically using Rumi instead of the remote. We're going to have, throw out your remote campaign, and you don't want to go back to your clunky remote, whether it's a physical remote or an app, like universal remote app, which are, by the way, like one of the most popular apps already on app stores. We would like people to replace it with magic wand-like experience that you just talk to your content, you modify it, you can ask any question, it eliminates all of the friction whenever you're curious about something. You don't need to provide tons of content. If you're looking for additional experiences, you are not looking across hundreds of applications and websites. It's all there.
So Rumi becomes the portal, more or less. Like, you become the interface, the gateway.
Yes, exactly.
That's a powerful position to be in.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, like, people consume 5 hours of content a day on average globally. So that's a really big market. So we hope that it just becomes a gateway. Wherever you go to media, it's going to be 2 times better if you do it with Rumi, or 10 times better. So you always go for Rumi. For some people, it's going to be very minimal. Like, if you want to watch an epic movie uninterrupted, then yeah, like, you just start and finish with Rumi. You might ask some questions in the meantime, but you just want to be focused on content. But for many types of content, people are, second screening is massive, especially among Gen Z. They're constantly on their phones while watching. Like, roughly 20% of that is dedicated to content. So they're looking for extra experiences from creators, trivia, comments from other fans, from their friends. They're shopping around that content and so on. But again, it's scattered across hundreds of different applications and websites. We just put everything together, frictionless, one screen, one wall, time-stamped. You have a wall that is just like popping you experiences that are relevant to exactly what you see on the screen. So we're hoping not only to take over that 20% of second screening that is dedicated to content, but also some of that other 80% that currently people spend on scrolling TikTok or Instagram.
That is a big amount. I see this really relevant in sports, where hey, remind me who number 11 is and how many rebounds did he get in the last game again? And, can I then bet? What can I hop into Polymarket and bet on the next, 4 points and who makes them? And, if he's out, who comes in, right? That interactivity in sports to me is the huge thing.
That's right. Imagine like as the team is pushing towards the touchdown line, right? Like just getting a contextual, hey, you want to bet that there's going to be a touchdown within like 10 seconds. And you're like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Really, really interesting. Well, and so back to the you then want to see 10,000, nodes of people capturing this data close to the source, get that. And then you want to see hundreds of thousands of people using those kind of Rumi remote or Rumi gateway to basically consume content, which means you will have to have developed or at least enabled a lot of content to be Rumi value add or Rumi enabled, right?
Yeah. So those 10,000 minimum, I think, as we expand to different types of contents, that's going to be tens of thousands of users with heavy machines, reliable. We pay them more. And then millions of users actually interacting with the application for consumer use cases. They can also gain because the data of how what they watch and how they interact with content is very valuable for us. So we will also be paying those users using the AI remote for if they agree to share their data. So what Nielsen is doing, it's like, extremely old school how they're collecting viewership analytics. We're able to do it at 100 times more granular level. So we not only know what people watch, who watches, who pays attention, but also how they interact with it. What do they feel? What are they interested in? What they don't like? Like imagine the future, like next presidential debate. We are live analyzing the video. Like let's say, I don't know, Elon Musk versus AOC. That would be a fun debate.
It wouldn't it wouldn't be a presidential debate though. Elon's not a citizen; he can't run.
But, you're right. But okay, so let's say,
but
yeah,
it could be
okay for
Rubio.
Okay, Rubio. So we're analyzing live how they're behaving, what they're saying. We have like all the context. We are analyzing body language. We're analyzing emotions. But on top of that, we have millions of people watching it through Rumi, and we know what pisses them off, what they're happy with, what questions they ask. And we can summarize all of that. So we know the sentiment. So we basically can use it for prediction markets. That's A. But B, if we know like what are the 3 questions that Americans want answered in this debate live, we summarize it and we could just submit it to the debate room and be like, hey, this is what people want to know.
Super interesting. Listen, let's back up for a second. You're actually relatively, new-ish in the DePIN space, and your project is pretty, unique to other DePIN projects. But are there other ones DePIN in the space that you pay attention to? Are there other DePIN projects, media related, for example, that you think are interesting and you're aware of? It's not like, listen, Fluence is in compute, right? So I see a lot of other compute DePINs. I'm aware of storage, all that stuff. You're in a bit of a different kind of vertical. So I'm not sure there's many peers as we have, but are there others you are kind of, you think are doing something interesting?
Yeah, I think Grass is doing a lot of interesting stuff, of course.
Definitely.
They're mostly focused on web scraping. They recently entered the video space, but they're focused on annotations. They're focused on search within video. They're not running heavy models, but yeah, they're doing fantastic job, and definitely they're inspiration for us. Live to Data, that's like more under the radar project. They're doing something more B2B with video analytics. So like use cases for advertisers to like identify where certain brands are displayed in content, how people react to it, and so on. It's like more manual work, but I guess also like they compensate people better for this type of jobs. Other DePIN projects, like I love what Don Internet is doing. They're launching now. They just launched the black box, which I hope Rumi is gonna also be on. So you're basically getting your DePIN hub in your at your home that serves as a hotspot, that serves as a source of compute, decentralized storage, and then through the App Store you can like optimize what kind of DePIN apps you want to run on the device. So we hope that people will be selecting Rumi on the black box. So that basically things, like just people continuously leverage their unused resources. We're getting more and more powerful devices in our pockets, at our homes, and more and more of that is just not used. So I think this is just the beginning for the space.
Excellent. Listen, I agree. The way I think about it is you have hardware getting more and more powerful. You have software becoming more open source and more powerful. And you have crypto economics only going one way in terms of scale and user adoption, right? And DePIN leverages all three of those trends.
Yep.
So every trend is going the right way for DePIN to be powerful. Well, listen, how do people become E10,000 at least to start with E10,000 heavy nodes? How do people sign up? How do they get validated? How do they follow you? How do they follow the project? How do they stay involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably X is the best. Rumi Labs _IO is our X. And my personal one is Matt, MATT Poreda, POREDA, on Twitter. Follow us. Go to our website, rumilabs.io. It's going to be rumi.io in a moment. We're in the middle of switching the domain. And right now the beta is live, but I would just hold on and wait for V1 coming in a month. And that's where things are going to start getting very, very interesting.
Terrific. Well, listen, excited to see that launch. Excited to have you on again after its launch. Excited to see kind of how it all develops and how it grows. Super exciting. And I love the media component of DePIN because it adds a whole nother kind of dimension, vertical to what's going on. So thanks so much for being on.
Of course. Thank you so much.
DePINed Podcast, the place where we explore real world use cases unlocked by crypto. That's all for today. Thanks for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us grow. Add a like, add a comment. And of course, if you have anyone you think we should be talking to or have on this podcast, either leave a comment there or reach out. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.